Before we start the show, remember guys, this posts each and every single Sunday. I know the last 2 weeks it hasn't been that way, but these last 2 Sundays I've had something to do, so I apologize for that. But from here on out, it will post each and every single Sunday. So if you like that, go check out the channel where we have a bunch of Miami Dolphins content for your viewing or listening pleasure. This first news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. We're just going to run through this really quickly because it's a pretty obvious one. But in terms of like hardcore news, this is just about it. Like, really just about it. It's a very, very silent time for football this time of the year. So, Dolphins wide receiver Leonte Carroo, this comes from Pro Football Rumors, could be on the roster bubble after having just 7 catches for 69 yards last season. The departure of Jarvis Landry, in theory, could open up an opportunity for him, but he'll have to stand out in a group that includes free agent pickups Danny Amendola, Albert Wilson, Devontae Parker, also with Devontae Parker and Kenny Stills, are also in line for playing time in 2017. 7th round pick Isaiah Ford has made an impression this offseason, which could push Carroo out of the picture. And don't forget about Drew Morgan either, who is very well regarded in the Dolphins organization. So yeah, Leonte Carroo is a huge disappointment. Don't know what else you want me to say. If you guys want to watch a crazy, probably cringy video for many moons ago, I did a video on Leonte Carroo when he just got drafted. I was very excited about it. Obviously coming out of Rutgers, 10 touchdowns, looking good, looking real good, and yeah, it didn't pan out. Unfortunate. Very physical receiver, fast for a receiver of that size, and had great hands. Just didn't pan out. Next news story comes from Dolphins Wire. Dolphins confident Charles Harris will show improvement in his second season. If one would look at Charles Harris's 19 tackles and 2 sacks from a year ago, they might believe he had a below-average year for a former first-round pick. However, the Dolphins have confidence that Harris will show improvement in his second year in the league. This is a quote from Adam Gase. Quote, "He's one of the guys I'm least worried about." After recording 14 tackles and 1 sack in his first 12 games, Harris registered 6 tackles and a sack in the Dolphins' last 4 games of last season. Yeah, I think we all have high expectations for him. I have high expectations for him going into his second season. Obviously, if you've watched any interviews, and just right there alone, if you've watched Adam Gase talk about him, or Chris Greer talk about why we drafted him, one of the bigger reasons is he's such a hard worker and he loves football. And that's a common theme throughout the Dolphins, like last 3 years of picking players. They're all super passionate about the game, and that's all to build a culture of winning for a long period of time, and hopefully that all comes together this year. But he's the antithesis of that. Like, he is the epitome of a hard worker who's very passionate and is very talented. So I would have no other reason other than to expect him with more playing time. Obviously, he's going to be in a killer rotation when you talk about defensive linemen, with Robert Quinn, Cameron Wake, obviously himself, Andre Branch, Will Hayes. I mean, he is in a one heck, and there's a lot of players young players on this team that could also squeeze into that rotation as well, who are talented as well. So I'm very, very excited about his second season in the league, and hopefully he learned a lot from his first season, and he comes back strong. I don't know what. If I had to say what I would be satisfied with, I would say somewhere around 8 sacks. 8 to 10, somewhere in there. I think I would be like, okay, that was a good second season. This next news story comes from the Palm Beach Post. Miami Dolphins special teams are now Walt Aikens' show. Now, this is a super boring topic because nobody wants to, hear about special teams. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because he's right. Obviously, the departure of Michael Thomas. I hope it doesn't. That came from Dolphins Wire. I'm not going to read the article. Special teams are boring. We're going to gloss over this, but I thought I would bring it up really quickly. I mean, our special teams have been the strongest unit and the most consistent units since Darren Rizzi really got here. Even, offense, defense doesn't really matter. It's been the most consistent. So I do think we'll be fine, even with the departure of Mike Thomas. This next news story comes from, again, Dolphins Wire. Kenny Stills could emerge as the Dolphins' #1 receiver this season. During organized team activities and mandatory minicamp this offseason, Kenny Stills was asked many questions. Again, this is from Dolphins Wire. Many questions not related to football. The thing that has been lost in everything is Stills is actually an outstanding receiver, and he has a golden opportunity to become the Dolphins' #1 receiver this upcoming season. In March, the Dolphins traded Jarvis Landry to the Browns, and now they will need to replace his 2017 production of 160 targets for 112 catches, 987 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Danny Amendola and Albert Wilson will help with that somewhat, along with Devontae Parker, but Stills could still elevate his stats from the previous 2 seasons. This is a quote from Kenny. He said, quote, "Obviously, I think any receiver would love the opportunity to get more balls, but I think the more success we have as a team, the ball is spread around." Quote, "With the guys we brought in and the guys that we already have, we have to get out there and start making plays. That way the defense doesn't know what we're doing. I'm just excited for us to get out there. Having our quarterback back and get some of these new guys out there and start making plays." In his 3 years with the Dolphins, Stills' numbers have increased each season. In 2015, he recorded 27 catches for 440 yards and 3 touchdowns. The next season, he hauled in 42 passes for 726 yards. That was the playoff year. And a career-high 9 touchdowns. In 2017, Stills caught 58 receptions for 847 yards and 6 touchdowns. So there you go, guys. Yeah, I do. There's a lot of nuggets in there that I want to touch on. The first one is what Kenny said. He said, with all the guys we have brought in, he thinks the ball is going to be spread around. This is a quote from him, and I'm obviously paraphrasing. It's not word for word what he said. But he said, I think, now that the ball is going to be spread around a lot more, because Jarvis isn't going to hog all the receptions, and how deep our receiver core is, he thinks that's going to lead to more team success. I also think that. I have said that from, and he said it in his quote. He thinks it's going to make the offense less predictable. So that's going to be huge for us. And not only that, but the running backs that we have, all of that stuff is going to make the offense way less predictable. And hopefully Ryan stays healthy for an entire offseason. That way we don't have to, switch offenses like we had to tailor to what Jay Cutler does well. So I think all of those things are going to really allow Kenny to have a better season this upcoming season as well. Also, I want to bring up another thing I really want to touch on is you see the stats. I mean, Kenny almost had 1,000 yards. Jarvis almost had 1,000 yards. And Devontae Parker was pretty close to 1,000 yards as well. And I feel like people underestimate when Jarvis left, everybody's like, well, what the heck who else is on this roster? When you look at how many times Jay Cutler was blindly targeting Jarvis Landry, and God knows that man couldn't read a field to save his life, and then you look at even so the production and all the trash, like how abysmal our offense was last season, how bad it was, how we could barely stay on the field, and all 3 of those guys still managed those kind of numbers, is pretty crazy. So it's not like these guys aren't talented. Kenny is a very talented player, and so is Devontae Parker. And obviously Jarvis Landry was a very talented player for us. So I just wanted to bring that up. Even after all of that, they still had those kind of numbers. Now let's just say everything goes well. We have a running game this season. Our offensive line plays better. And now what are they going to do? I think the only thing that they can do is do better. So, and obviously with the additions of Albert Wilson, Danny Amendola, it's going to be awesome, guys. I really do feel like this offense is so much better than it was a year ago. And partly is because of health. I mean, if we had Tannehill last year, who knows what the heck would have happened? If the hurricane didn't hit, who knows what would have happened? If Tony didn't get hurt. But we can go on and on and on. But a lot of stuff happened last season. But this year, man, a lot of things are looking great. And the other thing I wanted to bring up is his touchdowns. He had 9 touchdowns in the year that we made the playoffs, and he really didn't start. I mean, he had a couple in the first 4 games. He had one against Cincinnati. He had the other one against New England. So I'm not going to say he didn't get off to like a slow start, but he really started heating up towards the to the end of the year there. When you think about his touchdown against the Jets and his touchdown against the Cardinals, his touchdown against the Bills, his touchdown against the Chargers, all of those were our playoff run. So we need him to do that again. We need him to stretch the field. We need him to score touchdowns and make big plays. And that's what he was able to do in 2016. That helped us get to the playoffs. And I think we saw glimpses of that. We saw glimpses of that in 2017. And people forget how much, he had a monster game against the Buccaneers. And obviously I think Cutler had, I don't know how many turnovers in one corner, but I don't even want to think about that right now, not to mention all the fumbles we had in that game, and we still barely lost that game. That Buccaneers team was terrible. We should have blew them out of the water. That was one of the worst losses we took last year, but he had a monster game that game. And if he gets consistency at the quarterback position, a quarterback who can actually spread the ball around and read the field and not be, tunnel visioned and make bad reads, I think there's no reason to think he can't still be that player. And obviously the game he had against the Jets last year as well, he dominated. So I think Kenny is capable. He's capable of a lot more than people think. He can dominate a game. We've seen him do it before. He can have big games. So he can be a number one receiver. So I'm excited, man. And it's unfortunate we couldn't keep those three together, man. Like I just said, as bad as last year was, and they still had those kind of numbers with three different players, that's pretty crazy. This next news story comes from Dolphins Wire, again. Top 5 factors for Dolphins to make the playoffs in 2018. So these are the top 5, according to Dolphins Wire, the top 5 things that need to happen for the Dolphins to make it this upcoming season. Let's see here. I think this is the number one thing. Competition in the AFC East division. In order to make the playoffs in the NFL, a franchise usually needs to post a 10-win season. When 4 of the 6 AFC East games on your schedule consist of organizations in dire disarray, I don't know, my brain fell asleep on that one. Disarray at the quarterback position, that can only help you clear the bar. The Bills have moved on from quarterback Tyrod Taylor to Cleveland to begin the era of A.J. McCarron / rookie Josh Allen. McCarron backup has shown flashes of competence, but nothing that suggests he'll run the Bills' offense at an elite level. While LaShawn McCoy is still a top force in the league, the Dolphins should find success in containing the Bills' offense. The Jets seem to have upgraded their talent under center in acquiring Teddy Bridgewater and drafting Sam Darnold, but nothing else really jumps up off the page, and their offense, unless you count them acquiring Terrell Pryor, let's not even get into the Redskins year he had last year. The defending AFC champion Patriots are easily the cream of the crop in the division, but the several key departures on both sides of the ball, alleged drama in the front office and between Bill and Tom. Julian Edelman's recent substance abuse suspension. This is the most off-season discourse in Foxborough in recent memory. So they make a point. Every team in our division, and I've said this before, I've made this argument before. I don't want to stick on this topic because we got 4 more of these to go. And it would be nice if he could have just listed this in a headline. This is why you read ahead, ladies and gentlemen. You have to win in your division. Duh. That's obvious. And when we won in 2016, when we went to the playoffs in 2016, we swept the Jets and we swept the Bills. Coincidence? No, it's not a coincidence. You have to do well in your division. And the reason we haven't been, we would kick the balls out of the Bills, and we could split with the Jets. I don't even care. And obviously, then we split with the Patriots. But we got to win against the Bills. And people think, oh, the Patriots are the one that whatever. No, dude, I feel fine splitting with the Patriots. That has nothing to do with it. It's the Bills, dude. If you think about all the years that we went 8-8 with Tannehill, and we barely missed the playoffs. That was 3 years in a row. I'm not gonna say it was all. It was because of the Bills. We got swept by the Bills. Obviously we got beat by the Jets, and if we would have beat the Jets, we would have made the playoffs, but we still split with them. So we got to beat the Bills. And who just recently left the Bills and for some reason played like Jesus himself against us was Tyrod Taylor. Some of the plays this guy made against us are ridiculous to keep drives alive. Some of the deep passes that he made. I have nightmares of Tyrod Taylor, and thank God he's gone. Let's see A.J. McCarron pick up a 3rd and 15 with his legs. All right, Let's see A.J. McCarron rush for a 15-yard touchdown and evade like 15 people and just scoot in the end zone. It's not happening. People really underrate Tyrod Taylor. He reminds me, if Mike Vick made better decisions with a ball, that's Tyrod Taylor. All right, let's go to the second reason, the second thing we have to do to make the playoffs. The AFC South is also on the schedule. The AFC South had an eventful 2017 season. Andrew Luck and Deshaun Watson both missed significant time due to injury, leaving the Colts and Texans to underperform. Sure, the Tennessee Titans made the playoffs, where Marcus Mariota basically guided them to a first-round upset of the Chiefs. Meanwhile, the Jaguars had their best year in a decade, making it to the AFC Championship before losing to the New England Patriots. So they make a good point. I mean, Andrew Luck is coming back. Deshaun Watson is coming back. Obviously, Blake Bortles sucks, but his defense is great. His team is really good. Who else? Who am I forgetting? The Titans. Obviously, but we also play the NFC North. So, I mean, I don't really know what he's trying to say there. It would be nice to do good against both divisions, but you don't have to we don't have to kill it, to make the playoffs. I mean, you can lose 6 games and make the playoffs. You can lose 7 games and make the playoffs in the AFC. The AFC is the most broken conference. I mean, 2 years ago, we were by far the superior conference. Now the NFC is it's not even close. The NFC is so much better than our conference, so yeah, I don't really know what to say to that. Yeah, we have to do well against them. We have to do well against anybody to make the playoffs. So that was kind of a stupid point. The next thing that we have to do good to make the playoffs, according to Dolphins Wire, more concentration on the edge rush. One of the biggest knocks on the defense last year was their inability to pressure opposing quarterbacks into mistakes. With 30 sacks tallied as a team, the Dolphins were tied for 26 in the NFL. While 5-time Pro Bowler Ndamukong Suh represents significant loss of talent for the interior defensive line, perhaps adding Robert Quinn at the defensive end position opposite veteran Cameron Wake can elevate the ability of the pass rush to reach the quarterback. Yeah, but I don't really blame it on them. I mean, our run defense was abysmal even with Suh. And listen, 2 factors why we didn't get as many sacks as we should have because of the talent on this defense. Number 1, the quick passing game. We couldn't tackle very well last season. We couldn't cover tightly on a consistent basis at all. If you want a perfect example of that, go watch the Buccaneers game-winning drive. That was god-awful coverage. That was some of the worst coverage I've ever seen any Dolphins defense have on some of the worst talent in the history of the National Football League. So we have to consistently, and some of it's play calling by Matt Burke, by the way. The other thing is third and longs. We did not put teams in third and longs enough. A lot of short yardage situations, and what was the first thing I just talked about? The quick passing game. That allows them to pick up third downs because guess what? They're in 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 3, constantly. If our 3rd and 6 is 3rd and long, but 3rd and 5 is 5 yards is not hard to get in the NFL, and it's very hard for a defense to let up 5 yards. I mean, you basically can complete any pass to anybody, and they can pick up 5 yards in the National Football League. So if we do better against the run, and we can consistently tighten up some of that coverage in the quick passing game, then our defensive line can actually do their job. And obviously, the biggest part of their job is stopping the run, so hopefully they can do that. So I'm going to disagree with that one. I think they got to stop the run, and hopefully we can do that this upcoming season. And a lot of that's with the linebackers as well. Hopefully they can do better. Offensive line. Was this the fourth? This is the fourth thing we need to do. The offensive line. The offensive line ranked 6th in pass blocking by Pro Football Focus. While I personally take limited stock in Pro Football Focus evaluations in the trenches, this ranking demonstrates how much the Dolphins have done to bolster this position, dating all the way back to previous head coach Joe Philbin. With the current regime under Adam Gase, it seems on paper that the Dolphins have finally gotten protection up front to keep Tannehill upright and productive, which is something he did not have in the Philbin era, which is what he just pointed out. While Tannehill had his doubters throughout his career, reining his confidence quickly to assure solid performance after recovering from a year-long injury requires trust in his big men. While the group did lose an excellent center in Mike Pouncey, tackle Laramie Tunsil, and veteran guard Josh Sitton, anchor a line that is the strongest it's been a recent memory. So what he's saying is one of the bigger factors, the fourth biggest factor we're going to have in making the playoffs is our offensive line, and I completely agree. They need to, and they're great, obviously, in pass blocking. I mean, you could put on a reel. And I think we're one of the better. I mean, you look at the Cowboys. They're. I mean, some splash reels or whatever you want to call it. Like I'm going to put on a bunch of tape to show, people or anybody, like, hey man, look how good this offensive line is. We had dominant moments like that in the passing game, but the issues our offensive line had is physicality. We couldn't wear our defense down to save our lives. I mean, no matter how good the running game was, doing, our offensive line was like the least physical offensive line in the league. I mean, there were so many plays where we got hit in the backfield. They have to do better at moving people out of the way in the running game, and hopefully they can, man. Jesse Davis had one heck of a rookie season, but he sucked in the run game. He was terrible at run blocking, and the entire offensive line was. So they got to stop being so soft, and maybe some of that was play calling, because we did pass it a lot last season because we were behind in a lot of games. So maybe if we call more running plays and are consistent with it, that'll help them, and we'll see what happens. And the fifth and final thing, thank God. Staying at least relatively healthy. I don't even have to read it. Yeah, no duh. Tannehill, obviously, all the injury, all of the things that happened. We cannot have our entire starting roster get hurt this season. And people forget how injured we were on a weekly basis. I mean, it seemed like most of our starters, it was really bad. It was really, really bad. This next news story comes from the NFL Spin Zone. The Miami Dolphins, who is their number one receiver for 2018? During his 4-year tenure with the Miami Dolphins, Jarvis Landry caught 400 passes on 567 targets. That's a ridiculous number, and his departure opens up a ton of targets in the pass game. The 2-year clear-cut starters heading in 2018 are Devontae Parker and Kenny Stills. The question is which one of these guys will step up as a number one target? This thing goes on forever, which is ridiculous. It's one topic, and we just, we talked about it earlier. I feel the same way. I mean, you look at their numbers with all of that going on and how bad of a year it was in 2017, and they still had respectable numbers. God only knows what they're going to put up this upcoming season, and I do give Devontae a lot of hate, but he still... If Kenny gets the excuse, then so does Devontae. I mean, he did not have consistency around him during the 2017 season, so hopefully with that returning, we'll see his numbers jump. And again, they weren't terrible numbers last season. He barely didn't have 1,000 yards. He has 1 or 2 half decent games. He gets 1,000 yards, especially how talented he is. This next I'm losing my brain. This next news story comes from the Palm Beach Post. Kenyon Drake is primed to bust out for the Miami Dolphins in 2018. Let's see here. So some of his stats right here. He started 6, so he only started 6 of 16 games. He had 133 carries for 644 yards, a 4.8 yards, 4.8 yards a carry average, and 3 touchdowns. Also caught 32 passes for 239 yards and 1 touchdown. So that's a total of 800 yards in only 6 games. He had a 66-yard touchdown versus the Panthers. These are some of his highlights. He had 120 yards versus the Broncos. And in my favorite game of his, he had 114 rushing yards and 79 receiving yards against the New England Patriots on Monday Night Football, which was awesome to watch. And I can't wait to see more of Kenyon Drake. And he's absolutely right. Kenyon is ready to go, man. I really can't wait for him, and especially this backfield, dude. We haven't had a backfield like this since Ricky Williams and Ronnie Brown. And dude, people are gonna be like, dude, how about you sit down? But listen to me right now when I say this. Stop the bus. Stop everything right now. And I'm serious when I say this. This is a more talented backfield than those two. And granted, those were two we have seen play. They were super productive. I get it. But these 3, not just 2, have a chance, man. They have a chance, dude. They really have a chance to be something special. And this something really special. I mean, I'm talking Zonka, Mercury Morris, Jim Kick. Not at we're gonna win Super Bowls, but I'm saying super productive and one of the better ones in the league. And I can't wait. I can't wait, dude. I can't wait. Can't wait. As long as some key players stay healthy, those three are going to have one heck of a season. This next news story comes from Dolphins Wire. Four things that stood out during their during the Dolphins offseason program. Okay, so these are four things that stood out during the Dolphins offseason program. Let's see here. The number one thing that stood out is Ryan Tannehill. At the beginning of the Dolphins offseason program, all eyes were on Tannehill as he is returning from a torn ACL. Judging by the way he looked during OTAs and minicamp, Tannehill appeared to be healthier than ever. He looked athletic and mobile during practices open to the media. Now, people are going to be like, dude, it's OTAs. We're shirts and shorts. We got our flip-flops on. Somebody's got Crocs. I swear to God, I saw some Heelys in the corner of my eye. Haven't seen any of those since the early 2000s. I mean, we got Cameron Wake over here sipping a dang, Kool-Aid. I don't know what he's drinking. God only knows. Cameron Wake drinks vegetables. I have no idea. But you get it. It's a more relaxed environment. It's not as competitive as training camp, and it's not as realistic as training camp is. So people are like, well, who the heck cares? Well, let me tell you something right now. Tannehill is still a quarterback, and he still throws. It's like backyard football. I mean, you still have to get open on the guy you're playing next. He's not going to tackle you, but let's say we're playing two-hand touch. There is still skill involved in that. There are still tight windows. There are still throws to be made. And according to every media outlet in the Dolphins community, this has been the best offseason Tannehill has ever had so far. So that's, to me at least, that's big news. I don't know about you guys. And again, it is more of a relaxed environment. It is not as competitive. It is not as realistic as training camp. But this is the best offseason. And again, it's still pretty hard. I mean, nobody can just go to an NFL OTAs and make some of the plays he's made. But he has impressed people. That is the point. And it makes me excited. And say what you will, but there you go. The second thing that stood out in the Dolphins offseason so far is safety Minkah Fitzpatrick. Although he has only been with the Dolphins for 2 months, Fitzpatrick showed why the team selected him with the 11th overall pick. He intercepted a couple of passes this spring, and he's played all over the field. Fitzpatrick has not only impressed his teammates, but also his coaches. So obviously Mink is balling, shot calling. Nothing we ever did think that was going to happen. Love him to death. Number 29 for life. Can't wait to see him play on the field. Super talented player. Cannot wait. And obviously super intelligent as well. And that's what you have to be. And I'll say it again, Matt Burke. Don't play with me. Okay? He better get significant time at free safety, because that is where he is going to flourish. I better not see 80% of his snaps in the slot. If I do, I hope Adam fires you the next week, because you're just misusing talent. Put him at free safety. This next news story. Wide receiver Danny Amendola. I think this is like the fourth thing that stood out. The Dolphins signed Amendola to help replace Jarvis Landry's production, and he's off to a good start. It is hard to ignore the Tannehill to Amendola connect during practices as they hooked up early and often. Although the two have just started working together, it seems like Amendola will be Tannehill's security blanket, which is good to hear. And one of the things I want to bring up that gets me excited, and maybe I get too excited sometimes, but it does remind me of when Adam had Wes Welker, and that's the year that they broke every offensive record in the book. Peyton Manning threw for 55 touchdowns, I think. Wes Welker had 12 touchdowns. He is the Wes Welker of Adam Gase's offense, and Adam's always constantly talking about detail and route running and not messing it up. That is the epitome of Danny Amendola, and he does that at a high level, and that's the same thing that Wes Welker did. And I think that's Danny Amendola is going to bring the same elements that Wes Welker brought to the Broncos in 2015. So, which makes me excited. Will it happen? Who knows? But he is the same type of player, is basically what I'm saying. And we saw what that type of player did in Adams' offense before. Hopefully he can replicate that this season. The last thing that stood out, according to Dolphins Wire, was linebacker Raekwon McMillan. After missing his rookie season due to an ACL injury, McMillan has reclaimed his starting middle linebacker position. The Dolphins didn't restrict McMillan in any way during his spring, as he is arguably the most important defensive player for the Dolphins in 2018. Now people are like, well, who that? Yeah, I would say it doesn't matter because he's a linebacker. I mean, again, they're in shorts and t-shirts. A linebacker's job is not to be shorts and t-shirts. It's out there, to go hit people. So yeah, I don't really know how you would judge a linebacker this early in the offseason. So we'll see about Raekwon McMillan. Moving on. This next news story comes from Bleacher Report. Oh, God, here we go. Bleacher Report takes me off so much sometimes. Ranking every NFL quarterback's supporting cast for 2018. I don't know who writes these articles for them, especially NFL. I don't read NBA stuff on Bleacher Report, so I don't know. NBA is more of like a circus act for me. I take the NFL obviously very it's a part of my life. The NBA is not a part of my life. So I don't know what I was trying to say there, but let's move on. Lost myself. Let's see here. So this is ranking every NFL's supporting NFL quarterbacks. Let me say that again because I'm sure I just with my stupidity just blew up your brain. Ranking every oh my God, ranking every NFL quarterback's supporting cast for 2018. Thank God I could get that out. Number 32, the New York Football Jets. Ugh, we're not even going to get into that. 31, the A.J. McCarron-led Buffalo Bills. Ooh. 30, Jimmy Garoppolo's supporting cast. I don't know. People forget his supporting cast does suck, man. 29, Blake Bortles and the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's got a good O-line and a good running back. It should not be that low. It's very hard to attain. 28, the Dallas Cowboys? Dude, if I had 3 all-pro players on my offensive line and an all-pro running back and a pretty good quarterback, not a great quarterback, but pretty dang good. I don't think he can carry an offense, but when he does have that supporting cast, he's great. Shouldn't be 28. That's a little ridiculous. 27, Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton's Cincinnati Bengals. Don't like saying crapping. It sounds weird. 26, Alex Smith. I keep saying the quarterback. Washington Redskins and Alex Smith's supporting cast. 25, Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks. Man. How is Russell Wilson, Seattle Seahawks, above the Dallas Cowboys? Good Lord, Bleacher Report. Sam Bradford and the Arizona Cardinals are 24. 23 is Ryan Tannehill and the Miami Dolphins. It's actually higher than I thought. The Miami Dolphins didn't have a lot going for them in 2017, but at least they had plenty of talent at the offensive skill position. Jay Cutler failed to take advantage of that while starting in the place of quarterback Ryan Tannehill. I'm starting to lose it, guys. I'm starting to become unhinged. 1 year later, Tannehill is back, but he has a lot less to work with now. Not really. We're not even going to get into this. That's because the penny-pinching, tanking Dolphins... we're not tanking. Dolphins traded top receiver Jarvis Landry and released number 1... I can't even finish that sentence. Okay, number 1 tight end Julius Thomas. Stop the bus. Stop the bus. Number 1 tight end Julius Thomas? Not the way I would describe him. Just months after dealing lead back J.J. to the eventual Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles, who is not better than Kenyon Drake. Jay could not have that many scrimmage yards, and I'm talking scrimmage yards, not just rushing yards, receiving yards, in 6 games at Kenyon Drake. Kenyon just fits the offense more. I think he's more versatile, more talented player than J.J. I think Kenyon's version of a running back fits today's NFL, if that makes any sense, more than Jay does. His style does not fit as well as Kenyon Drake. I'm confusing you all, but you know what I'm saying? Without Landry, Thomas, and Ajayi, the quarterback supporting cast in Miami just isn't the same. Without Landry, okay, I give you Julius Thomas. Julius, I can't run anymore. My knees are broken. Thomas. And Jay Ajayi, who pouts and can't catch a football to save his life in today's NFL. When a football hits this man's hands and he tries to turn upfield, it's like watching a baby try to walk for the first time. Okay? This guy, whoever wrote this, is exaggerating this a little bit. The receiver core still isn't awful, with Kenny Stills, Devontae Parker, Danny Amendola, and Albert Wilson. but there isn't a clear-cut top gun there. Parker has the best shot at replacing Landry, but the 2015 first-round pick has come along slowly as it regressed statistically in 2017. The vacant tight end job will either go to first-round Mike Gesicki or fourth-round Durham Smythe, or journeyman A.J. Derby or Gavin Escobar and Marquise Gray. Gavin Escobar and his toenail are better than Julius Thomas ever was for this franchise. If I ever have to see the play where, listen, Jay Cutler threw a terrible pass. Jay Cutler's Jay Cutler, and I never want to see Jay Cutler ever again. But the play in the corner of the end zone on a fade route where, hey, Julius Thomas, you're a tight end. Act like you actually want to win the game and try to go up for the football. I have never seen the lack of effort that was on that. I mean, my God, I wanted to put my head through my TV. That's how terrible it was. It was god-awful. Watching him play tight end is terrible. Okay, my top 5 worst plays. We're not going to get all 5. Number 1 is that Saints play. And the second one also involves Julius Thomas when Jay Cutler blindly, the man can't read a defense to save his life, threw a pick when he was throwing on a corner out to Julius Thomas against the Panthers where Luke Kuechly picked it off, when he had Damian Williams for at least 15 yards in the flat. Also involved Julius Thomas. So let's not even... My head hurts. I don't want to talk about Julius Thomas anymore. I hate Julius... I hate Julius... I'm not going to say I hate Julius Thomas. I hate the way he played in 2017. Because I don't know Julius Thomas. I don't know if he could be he could save puppies. He could be coming out of helicopters, nosediving into lava pits, and pulling out children. I don't know what he does on his free time. All I know is not very good NFL tight end in 2017. That's all I know. So yeah, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That has been your podcast for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed. Some of the final words for this week, all I gotta say is the biggest sin I ever had, and the biggest hole I left on the planet Earth was making videos about how Jay Cutler would succeed as a Miami Dolphin. And I apologize to you guys. I will never get over it. And could not have been more wrong. That was my Skip Bayless moment of my life. And I hope I do not have another one like it. So, I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast for this week. If you did, consider subscribing. You don't have to. But I do this for fun, and I love that I do have somewhat of a very, very small, very, very small anthill of a following to make videos and entertain you guys, hopefully, is the goal. So I am Skagster1083. I know my brain failed on me in this week's episode, but I will see you guys in the next one.